greetings. I hope that everybody will ignore the background noise. And I'm sorry that I couldn't be here in person, but I want to go ahead and do a quick video for you guys for the meeting. Last week, if you remember correctly, we did the beat sheet, and this was one that we kind of went through that showed all the parts of each act. And that is uploaded to the actual Teams page so that you can download this document if you'd like to. And remember, there were 3 acts and all of that. So you learned how to structure the story. So you can use that for fiction and nonfiction alike, as creative nonfiction. So hopefully that was helpful to you and you got a chance to look at all of that. I'm gonna show you the webpage we looked at for log lines one more time so that you're reminded of what that was about. And if you weren't here, please go back and watch the video. Hopefully it'll be helpful. I'm going to pause just for a second so I can get over to that web page. So this is the web page, and the link is in the Teams page, and you can see it up there. This is pretty good. It had all of some blockbuster log lines, and as Esther so graciously pointed out, I'd left out my protagonist of my story because I'm sort of developing mine about the cicadas. So anyway, so here's that page, and I just want to remind you that a good log line goes a long way. It can actually create your story. It's that one-line summary that we talked about last week, and it is really the starting point for most of the screenplays. Now, screenplays are beautiful creations because if you're very visually inclined, or if you've read so much that you can see the scenes, then you can actually start with a script and work backwards into your nonfiction and fiction writing, which was, that's awesome. So I'm going to pause one more time, which I don't know if you can hear the clicks. That's why I'm announcing them. And I want to show you a few things that you can use and some tips to help you set up screenplays. And then I have a template that I'll upload. There's quite a few resources that I'll actually upload to the Teams page. And then hopefully you all can kind of work out writing your own scene. So hang on just a moment. So the next part is a worksheet that I'm going to upload. It's actually the link to the worksheet, and I really feel like there are some wonderful pieces to this, so I wanted to show you, and you'll see what the script looks like. I'm going to show you a live one. But for this, Worksheet B, formatting a script, has some very specific directions, because if you think about it, whether you're on the stage or if you're doing film, the pieces of that have to be structured so that they're consistent across, different areas. So you have to make sure that you're writing something that's well formatted, and it'll also help you organize. So one of the things you'll see here is the slug line, and these are scene headings. That's just a fancy word for it. And you can see, we're going to actually look at those. This worksheet is great. It shows you these different parts, so interior and exterior. I love that this goes through all of each portion of a script. So you can see here that this is exterior, right, outside, and the location of the scene is in a boat, and what time is it? It's late night. So that really can define your scene. If you're thinking about people interacting with dialogue and how this sets that scene, it really works together quite nicely and easily translates into your writing, into a story. So the next part, the action text, so important. This is an example of that text setting that scene, and usually comes after the location here. That's why they've done this in order. Now, not all of these are in order because obviously characters are going to be trickled through the whole entire script, but this helps define that scene. And a lot of people who write creative nonfiction or fiction are very wordy. And if you notice something, this is very short. Because the director is the one who will kind of pick up on that if you're writing this for the purposes of an actual film or stage. The person directing that is going to kind of help with some of this action stuff. So your job is really just to convey the bare minimum of it. And other people have to help interpret that at a later stage. And of course, you might be asked to add stuff to it if you're actually submitting this somewhere. Or might want to add a few more details, but really a few sentences is all you need to express your action text. And that can also help you do that sort of quasi-outline for your fiction or nonfiction. So the characters' names, these are always centered. These show you actually how it looks in terms of the script. And this is the example of basic character name line. It's in capital letters. And the softwares, if you use a software to format this, which you don't have to, and I have there's a few links in this document, and I'll also upload some sources for you to use. But some of those automatically do it. There's a pull-down list on some of those that help you do this formatting, so you don't have to remember it all. But if you're using a plain Word document, you really want to have a concept of where these go so that you can make sure you get them in there. And this is accurate. I've double-checked this little sheet here to make sure that it's telling you right. Then the example of a character name line for voiceover, and that's literally voiceover, exactly what it sounds like. If you're doing a voiceover for something, say a cartoon, even, something like that. The dialogue is a segment of text that the character named on the previous line is speaking. So Jeb is saying something. Those are centered. And this is something that you'll see throughout the example that I'll give you. And we're actually going to look at a web page where some movie screens are side by side to help you with that. So Kitty, hypnotically, this is that, let's go up here, I'll show you. So this, when screenwriters include that parenthetical description, the word or phrase included is to convey the emotion. And that does help in terms of directing. And all of the screenplays that I've written have that in there for specific situations, but they're not required necessarily. So keep that in mind. But you can see how if you know that Kitty's hypnotic, what does that look like in terms of writing creative nonfiction or fiction stories, right? And then what is she saying? So this kind of picture goes together, right? So you've set the scene, you've told what the character is feeling, and you've given her a line. So that all, if you think in terms of how you picture that in your mind for writing books or short stories or whatever you're working on, it really has some value in helping you do that. So text formatting is very, very specific, and I love this little handout because it goes through, it tells you which font. Now this is an odd font because, you know, in English we're like, yeah, 12-point Times New Roman, right? Well, this is Courier New Font, and that is the formatting standard for the screenplays. I think mostly because it's spread out, it's very clear. The spacing is nicely done. So, and here you see that all put together. So you've got the exterior of the boat. You're outside in a boat late night. You're talking about Jeb's an expert fisherman. Kitty's his daughter. Jeb is trying to teach Kitty to fish, but she seems distracted. So you can see where that emotion comes in that we saw hypnotically. The narrator is doing a voiceover. The day had gone swimmingly, but Jeb knew something fishy would happen that night, right? So you've got your little voiceover, in this case, the narrator. Jeb to Kitty, says it to Kitty. Now, this can be assumed. So even though this is in here talking to Kitty, you can assume that the two inside of the scene are probably interacting with each other. So that isn't always there where it's saying to who, because if you notice, Kitty doesn't say to Jeb, right? It's assumed, of course, Kitty's responding to Jeb because he's talking to her. So Jeb, tarnation, someone's trying to steal our fishing spot, right? I don't know if he's talking like that, but you can see it's got a very, very specific format. Stage plays are mostly the same. There might be a few minor differences, but I haven't seen very many, none that I can actually think of right at this moment. Now, this little document that I'm going to upload does have a couple of sources where you can get software to format scripts. I encourage using free items, and I think Celtics has a free version still. I'm not sure if RawScripts does, but I'll also send you another one that may be helpful as well. So I'm going to pause again, and I want to go over to the little 15 sides, this little website that I want to show you, and I'll put the link also in the group area. And then I'd like us to either use the tentpole document that I showed last week, and I'll try to re-upload that as well, or your own personal story to do a scene. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. So what you see here is just a simple BuzzFeed.com website. I love it because it shows this. So you can see Mean Girls. I don't know if everybody's watched that, but it's very interesting. And you can kind of see where this little script piece, Caddy, could you give us some privacy for like 1 second? Caddy's like, sure. So Caddy makes eye contact with Janice and Damon as plastics confer. And the plastics were the 3 girls at the school. And then it keeps going. And it shows you each scene. What does that look like visually, right? So take just a second to look at that and see the way that that translates into the actual film. So there's my pause, right? I'm going to move down to the next one. Just because hopefully this one is somewhat familiar with people. And this has a little different font, you'll notice too. When Chris sank into the sunken place during Missy's hypnotherapy session in Get Out. So if you've seen this is a completely different type of film, but you can see the visuals here. There's no response. Chris cries. Eventually he slows down and comes to a stop. So you can see kind of this, what's going on here, what that looks like visually as they put all of this together. And then here, Missy reaches towards the screen and shuts his eyelids. So you can really see the connections here. And visual stuff is my favorite anyway. Avengers Endgame. Have you seen that one? Well, Thanos snaps his fingers, right? So it's got those little visuals here. There's Tony Stark as Iron Man. And I am Iron Man. Right? So you can see that in his expression and the stuff around him. And so you can see that now there are some, if you look at the full script, you're going to see some details in there that help with this. But this has a lot to do with how the director and producers put this together. And, you know, even on stage plays, it would be the same concept. Some of that is up to the interpretation of the person doing the directing. Of course, this is Frozen. And you can see some, so it just goes on with a bunch. This is one of my favorite movies right here, so I have to name it Princess Bride. Indigo pushing slowly off from the wall again. This is during a fight scene. It's so cool. If you haven't seen it, please watch it. And this script is free online if you want to look at Princess Bride and watch the movie side by side. It is really cool to watch that if you're interested. It really shows you that visual representation of that script. So it goes on to other ones, Devil Wears Prada, there's just all kinds. I'm seeing if I'm from Little Women. There's a classic, and it's got some great ones. Now the red is not red inside of the script. I'm not sure why they pasted this way, and you can see still kind of the same little rhythm. There's Laurie shaking her head. She's saying something, you know. So those little comments that you saw in that little worksheet are here too. So I'm going to pause just for a second and get you started on something else. So if you want to, you can actually download the script template that is put inside of our Teams page. And this is actually a Microsoft script template, and it shows you kind of what all of those look like. And actually up here, there's a missing piece. If you have an agent or a manager, it would actually go up here. And I can send you the updated one, but I thought this would be simple for the purposes of the meeting and sharing stuff. You can see some of the components we talked about in each piece here. See the scene description, opening, the character name, the dialogue they say, the character name, the dialogue they say. And of course, this can be modified. You may not have 5 characters, you know, all of that. So keep that in mind. And the parenthetical information is in here. So it's a nice little starting point, right? So I'm hoping that during the meeting that you guys can think about a story that you're working on or want to work on and start filling in some of these blanks. And I'm also going to upload another one that already has script information in it, so you can see what that looks like as well. So I'm going to pause one more time and give you another tool to look at, and then I should have it finished for you to work on a scene. It usually takes, if you're doing a really short scene, it shouldn't take you over 10 or 15 minutes. But I encourage you to at least get started. We're a non-judgy group. So hopefully you can do a little bit and share a little bit. And even if your formatting is a little bit off, that's okay. The point of this is to show you the structures of things so that you can apply those structures to more expansive writing, so like books and so on. So hang on just a second, I'll be right back. Okay, so I wanted to show you a real script from a full-length feature film so you can really see that formatting in action. This is for educational purposes only, obviously, and this is called scriptslug.com. You can get several different scripts from that area. As you know, Titanic was around 1997, so this also shows the way it looks in its final format. These are numbered, which you don't have to worry about right at this moment. But the final script for going to production looks like this. You can see those things that we talked about, like there's the name of the character, there's the dialogue. This is giving directions for this next part. Cut wider to show that Brock is operating the camera himself, turning it in his hand so it points at his own face. So it's giving minimal, and you can see how minimal those are. Those are not huge details. Now, sometimes you have to add more details, but most of the time you don't. Most of the time they're very minimal. And then you have all of the dialogues, right? And as you go through here, you'll see that it's very, very consistent in its formatting. So you see all the stuff that you have in common with that Word document that I had there. So I'll post this as well so that you have it. I hope that you all will use the next 10 or 15 minutes just to stop and work on something that in script format, which is really, if you think about it, that nice outline. It also, one of the things that I love and one of the things that I'm currently doing is in one of my stories, I'm doing a side-by-side. So as I write each chapter has its own scene. I'll probably come back and share that after I proof mine. There's some, I just finally decided on who the organization is in mind that's going to be the troublemakers. So I'm not going to share that right now, but I will eventually share it with you guys so that you can see what I've done. And then hopefully you all can take some time to write and share with each other. I know Esther's an adept facilitator, so I'm sure that she can pause and even allow people to show theirs on the screen if they need to. So I hope that this was helpful. I will upload all of the sources. You can always ask me questions. I'm not an expert, but I am getting there. So I will be working on my stuff long term, and I'll try to share something of mine when I'm on my home computer as well, just to be fair, since I couldn't be here in person. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to seeing what you all came up with.